So we're going to be talking about the marketing environment today, and I mentioned the marketing environment variables last time, and you recall we talked about this chart last time, and when we talked about the approach that we take to studying marketing, and I said we use a strategic approach or a managerial approach to studying marketing. I pointed out to you that the marketing environment variables are actually shown on the outer edge or the outer ring of this drawing. And remember what I said last time is that these variables are not really controllable on the part of marketers. And so you might be thinking, well, you know, if we can't control them, then why are they important? You know, why are they relevant? Well, they're really relevant for two reasons. The marketing environment variables affect today's marketing decisions. You know, out there in the business world today, marketers are making lots of decisions that relate to the product area, to pricing, to physical distribution or to distribution, and to promotion. They're going on every day, all the time. The current marketing environment, the current forces in the marketing environment are having an impact on today's decisions. That is competition, technology, laws, sociocultural forces, and so forth. These all are having an impact on decisions that are being made today. And so that's one reason that we need to have an understanding, to the extent that we can, about the potential effects of these marketing environment variables. Also, too, these marketing environment variables have an impact on the outcome of today's decisions down the road. For example, 3 months ago, marketers were making certain decisions about product, price, distribution, and promotion, and those decisions that were made 3 months ago were affected by the marketing environment forces of that time. Today, 3 months later, we might be looking at the results of those decisions. You know, were they good decisions? Did it work out okay? Well, to some degree, whether they worked out okay or great or not so well is going to be affected by the forces in the marketing environment and the changes in the forces of the marketing environment that have occurred since those decisions were made 3 months ago. For example, today, probably there were some people in the business arena who were being told, you know, you really, or you and others 3 months ago really made some great decisions. Well, one of the reasons that they might be viewed as great decisions is that the shape of the environment changed in such a way, in terms of these environmental forces, that it made those decisions great, or it helped to make those decisions great. And you know, today also there may have been some people getting fired because of the decisions that they made 3 months ago, and there were forces in the marketing environment that changed in such a way that it made those decisions look terrible, and they got canned. I mean, that can happen. And so you have to recognize that in some cases, some of these people got kind of lucky, and others got sort of unlucky, because although, you know, there was this kind of impact due to these changes in these environmental forces from 90 days ago, they weren't predictable. That can happen. These are the two major reasons that we're very much concerned about understanding some of the effects of the marketing environment variables. So let's look at, or think about how businesses react to environmental forces. And as you can see, there are a couple of ways. Some businesses will react to changes in the marketing environment using what we call a reactive approach or framework. A reactive approach to changes in the marketing environment means that essentially management of a business or a particular organization will change the organization or the operations of the organization to be consistent with the changes in the environment. You know, they will make changes so that the business is in line with these changes. For example, maybe there would be changes in some laws that took effect about a week ago. And so prior to that effective date, businesses were changing how they operate to be consistent with changes in the laws that became effective a week ago. That they are reacting to the changes. There's nothing wrong with this approach at all. It's fairly common to use a reactive approach, and you know, management is trying to make the organization, the operations consistent with these changes. It's also possible for an organization to take a proactive approach. A proactive approach, it means that a business or an organization will try to influence the environmental forces in some way, so that the environmental forces are changed in a way to make those forces more consistent with the operation of the business. Rather than changing the business's operations, instead they try to influence or have some impact on the environmental changes that occur. An example of that would be for an organization or business to use lobbying to try to get certain types of laws changed, or maybe get certain types of regulations modified. So in this case, they're actually trying to influence laws or regulations so that those laws and regulations are consistent with how the firm wishes to operate. To give you an example, let's consider what's known as the Daylight Savings Time Coalition. You're probably aware that we haven't had daylight savings time forever. In your lifetime, we've had it forever. Not in my lifetime. I can remember a time when we didn't have daylight time. So daylight time was created by Congress, by federal Congress. And as you know, we switched to daylight time at a certain time of the year. Probably it's in March. And then later in the year, we switched back to standard time. So some businesses formed a coalition to try to get those times changed so that we would start daylight time earlier in the year and it would extend later in the year than what was currently the case. Businesses that formed this coalition included companies that make yard furniture, outdoor kinds of equipment, barbecue grills, charcoal, the companies that make charcoal, because they wanted daylight time especially to begin earlier in the year. Because if daylight time starts earlier in the year, that means that there's a greater number of people that leave work and get home while it's still daylight, and they have time to cook out. They have time to do some things outside before darkness sets in. That means that the sales of products would increase, wouldn't it? Also, as a part of the coalition, candy companies joined the coalition. Candy companies wanted daylight time to be extended later in the year. Why? Halloween. Yes, they wanted daylight time to extend into early November because they know that they can sell more candy if parents have time to get home, get all the costumes on, get out there and start trick-or-treating while it's daylight. Because especially if you have small children, you don't want them out in the dark very long on Halloween, or ever for that matter, not just Halloween. So this coalition lobbied Congress to start daylight time earlier in the year, let it run later in the year. When they made this attempt, they were successful in getting daylight time to start early. That was successful. But on that particular attempt, it was not successful to extend daylight time into early November. So the candy companies lost out in this attempt, but the other companies were successful. Now, since then, there was another effort to change daylight time to make it even start earlier in the year and go into the first week of November, first Sunday in November, which would include the Halloween. They were successful in the most recent attempt. So, as you know, or you may know, under current law, daylight time extends to the first Sunday of November. That's when the time change occurs. So this is an example of taking a proactive approach, getting the law changed, as opposed to just sitting back and waiting for something to happen and then responding to it.